Hello mountain bike friends, in this video I'll be bleeding my front brakes. I have SRAM Code R brakes, and to get started let me just go over some of the things that I have for the procedure. So of course you have the brake fluid, which is an irritant, so that's why you need to get gloves. I also have the printed directions just in case I need to go back. And I have the bleeding kit. Now there's two different types of bleeding kits for SRAM. There's the professional version and the ordinary version. I didn't know this, so I ended up buying the professional version, which is more expensive. I think if you don't have your own bike shop, you could probably be fine with just a normal version. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So the first step is to remove the front wheel and remove the brake pads. So we'll go ahead and do that right now. All right, pretty easy. All right, so we're gonna take this brake pad out. It's important not to squeeze the brakes, because if you squeeze it, you can pop the pistons out, and that's a no-no. Making sure not to touch the brake pads. I take them out. All right, once the brake pad is removed, you want to go ahead and push back the pistons. And just put this over here. Now this part is easy to get frustrated because the pistons are going to be, they're going to seem like they're stuck. But they're actually not stuck. It's just that the seals around them have gotten a little dry. So with just a little bit of patience and some plastic tire levers, you have to push them back. So if initially they don't go back, don't be discouraged, don't get frustrated. Don't try to drain any of the fluid from the brakes. Just go ahead and do a kind of a rotation until they start to go in. And it may take a little bit of time, like maybe 5 minutes or so, but just keep at it. And don't get too frustrated, don't push too hard. They will go in eventually. And also another thing to keep in mind, so with SRAM brakes after the year 2018, it is not recommended to apply any dot fluid or grease from the outside. And the reason why they recommend against doing that is because it can cause hypermobility of the piston in the seal. And what that ends up happening is you get too much of a slide and it gets too close to the rotor and you get brake rub. So you definitely don't want to do that. It's going to just make things really much more difficult than they need to be. So do not apply, and there's videos on the internet that say you should do this. They're usually outdated and they're not about SRAM brakes. So again, SRAM brakes after 2018, do not do that. It's going to make your life miserable. All right, and once the pistons have been pushed back, we put the spacer in there to prevent accidentally pressing the brake and causing the pistons to pop out. Just a nice little preventative measure. And then there to keep it in place. Alright. Then we go ahead and open the bleed port. It's right here. Okay. Right, in this step we're going to be preparing the syringes filled with brake fluid. So you're going to see two syringe ends. So this is for the caliper, it has this nice little spinning thing. And then you have the ordinary one, that's for the brake lever. So we'll go ahead and attach these to the respective syringes. Be easy. Got the gloves on. So for the lever end, the instructions are to fill it to 75% of the syringe. And then you want to drain the air out of it. So we'll get this tissue ready for that. So 3/4. You got some air in there. There we go, we got the air out of there. And then you want to go ahead and click and lock it. There you go. All right, and let's get the caliper end syringe ready as well. It's just 1/4 in this one, not as much. Drain the air bubbles out. And according to the instruction manuals, you don't have to clip this one, so you can just leave this one open. As you can see, it doesn't really drain, so it's safe. Right, and you have your isopropyl alcohol around just to make sure it's nice and clean. It helps get the dot fluid off. All right, now according to the SRAM manual, you want to loosen the port a little bit. So, 1/4 left and then right, and you close it back up again. Alright, so you take this caliper syringe, you put it into the bleeding port until it does a nice click. And you go counterclockwise 1 full rotation to open the system, not to exceed 2. And to prepare the lever, you want to make it nice and horizontal so that the fluid doesn't leak out. Alright, so that's set. We're going to take the screw off right here. All right, go ahead and unclamp. So we're going to go ahead and push down while holding this syringe down here vertically. So pushing down, and this should go up. So you see it's going up down there and going down up here. and we pull up. So you make sure that you don't manipulate the syringe down here, only manipulate the top syringe. Just gonna rest this here for a second. Full grip strength. I'm gonna do this about 3 times. Make sure all the air is out of the system. That's 2. We're going for 3. There we go, and we go ahead and take out the bottom one. All right, so you want to go ahead and rotate the syringe tip clockwise until it closes the system. Nice and closed, okay. And then we pull it out gently, seal it up. All right, and that takes care of the caliper end. Once the caliper syringe has been removed, a critical step is to go ahead and squeeze the lever a couple times. And then you want to go ahead and pull on this. Push down. And do this about 3 times, 3-4 times. Pull up. Push down. It's 2. 3. And 4. Then you let go, let it come up naturally. Okay, once you let the thing equalize, go ahead and reclip the syringe. And then make sure you have your screw handy. It's going to get a little messy here, so you gotta get your towel ready. Paper towel. Okay, got a little bit of fluid coming out already. And you don't want to screw it in too tight. So if someone's having fun with fireworks outside or a trash can, I can't tell. Clean with some isopropyl alcohol. And if it spills in the ground, make sure you clean it off before you step in it. If you take it home, it's not going to be good. It likes to drip down the fork, so make sure you get it off the fork, otherwise it makes the color fade. And you're going to be that guy with the faded forks. Now this part, I'm going to go ahead and bring the pistons out slowly. Now it's one of the hardest parts, in my opinion, is getting the pistons to come out equally. So before I put the wheel on, I put this smaller spacer in there and I try to hold it at center line as much as possible. And then I slowly squeeze a lever until the pistons come out. And then, and of course, you want to make sure that your brake pads are in before you do this. So you put the brake pads in first, you put the spacer in, make sure the spacer is centered, and then you squeeze. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. Brake pad back in. Make sure not to touch the brake pads. So put this spacer in there to make sure it's at center, and then on this side make sure it's at center line because it can deviate slightly if you're not watching it. And then you squeeze the lever, slowly let the pads come out. All right, so I'm going to take the brake pads back out just to see how they look, how the pistons look, if they're out symmetrically. Sometimes it's not perfect, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just as long as one is not completely in and the other is out, should be fine. So let's take a look at the pistons. Yeah, they're all out about a millimeter or so. It's nothing spectacular, but it's okay. So I'm going to put the brake pads back in there again. Again, making sure not to squeeze the lever. All right, putting the tire back on. Now, I like to use this spacer tool. It really helps with preventing brake rub. You put it on the rotor, you slide it into between. You slide it between the brake pads, assuming you can hold on to it. All right, it's between. Squeeze the lever a couple times. All right, so I squeezed the lever. The spacer has been taken out and we have a nice gap. Once I do that, once I take the spacer out, I do not squeeze the lever. I leave it for 24 hours to let the seal dry around the piston. The thought process behind this is that when you push the pistons back in, they get lubricated by the dot fluid, and that makes them slipperier than normal, And so when you squeeze a lever, you may get towards slide of the piston towards the rotor, and you get brake rub. So by giving it 24 hours to dry up, you may prevent that from happening. And you have a nice brake without any rub, and that should be it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you found it useful, please like and or subscribe. This is a new channel, so any support will be appreciated. Thank you very much.